Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're calling in from, and welcome to the Global Wellness Institute's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Initiative virtual series, Inclusive Ideas. On behalf of our entire team, we're excited to embark on this journey of exploring diverse perspectives and inclusive practices within the wellness community. I'm Jackie Roby, chair of the DEI initiative, and I'm honored to be your host for today's conversation. I want to honor and introduce our members, Vice Chair Cherry Catrice, members Anne Marie Schrouder, Anna Quiroga, and Demetria McNeil. As the founder of Inspire Journey Consulting, I work as a relationship mindset coach and speaker, and I help women of color and allies to get back their stolen dreams, activate what I call the dream factory, quiet their self-doubt monster, and believe in themselves again for the first time. It is incredibly important for me to create spaces where diversity is celebrated and inclusion is woven into the fabric of everything that we do. It's a privilege to be part of this initiative and on this team, and to be in a space with all of you who are incredible thought leaders committed to shaping the future of wellness. And before we dive into today's session, I just have a few housekeeping reminders. So please ensure your microphones are muted during the presentation to just minimize background noise. We encourage you to use the chat features to share your thoughts and questions throughout. We want to hear from you. So we will open the floor to questions as we are closer to wrapping up. So please stay for this. We are absolutely recording this, so it will be available for later. We're going to email it out. It will live on our YouTube channel, which is GWI DEI. So be sure to look for that. We're also going to put that information in the chat for you. So please subscribe so you can stay up to date on what we're doing, and follow us on LinkedIn as well. So thank you for your cooperation. The concept behind Inclusive Ideas is to foster an open dialogue about diversity, equity, and inclusion within the wellness industry. Our goal is to highlight voices and stories that often go unheard, to share practical strategies for creating more inclusive wellness environments. Each session features a special guest who brings unique insights and expertise to our discussions. In our last episode, we discussed how to create spaces of belonging within organizations with Dr. Kali Arnold. Today, we're continuing this conversation by focusing on uncovering the hidden blind spots in organizations that may impede sustainable inclusion. I am over the moon excited to have Dr. Lauran Star with us, someone who I was lucky enough to meet, engage with, and had an instant connection. She is a pioneering inclusion, accessibility, diversity, and equity psychologist and strategist, recognized as the first ID&E Workplace Psychologist in the United States. With over 20 years of success in human resources, organizational culture, and ID&E, Dr. Star is known for implementing evidence-based, data-driven strategies to create high-performing cultures and elevate ID&E standards within organizations. Her mission is to disrupt traditional norms by cultivating bold, authentic, and accountable leadership. Dr. Star ignites innovation, challenges the status quo, and empowers individuals and organizations to harness their unique strengths, driving transformative change that inspires and elevates all. A veteran of the United States Armed Forces who served in Desert Storm, Dr. Star brings a rich, diverse background as a neurodiverse leader living with a spinal injury and growing up in a multicultural family. Beyond her corporate success, she has performed on and off Broadway, is a best-selling author, and a sought-out media expert. As a thought leader, Dr. Star excels in uncovering blind spots and driving clarity in the ID&E field through her research and practice. Dr. Star, I'm so honored to have you here today.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Jackie. I've been looking forward to this for the last couple months.
I love it. I'm so excited. Um, Dr. Starr, one of the books that she's written is Evidence-Based Inclusion. And let me tell you, it's something that I haven't been able to put down.
Oh, I love hearing that.
And it just really sings to my soul. And I think it walks us through ways to create lasting change. And there's so much to think about. So, my first thought for you, though, is I think we need to understand what is the difference between transactional diversity versus transformational inclusion.
Yeah, I love that question. If you look at the United States right now, if you look at Western democracy right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become a battleground. And a lot of that is stuck in that transactional framework of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what that means is that I give you something, you give me something back in return. And that's not how we work in an organization. That's not how we connect. People inherently have a desire to connect with each other. And we're forgetting about that connection. And I think it's really important to recognize what diversity is. Like, let us level set right from the get go before we jump into any of this content. Diversity are the unique affinities that make us unique as humans. That's it. That's diversity. You have diversity everywhere you go because there aren't two of you, Jackie. There aren't two of Rose who's tuning in or Sherry who's tuning in. It's you. You are unique. So when you're with someone else, we have diversity. It's also, and here's the transactional component, it's also a way for organizations to measure how diverse an organization is. It becomes a metric. And organizations utilize, at least here in the United States, they utilize the protected classes, veteran status, disability, race, ethnicity. And let me just put that out there. Race and ethnicity are socio-political constructs. We are all one race. We are all the human race, unless you're from Mars. Right. And we are 99.9% identical on the human genome. 99.9% identical on the human genome, which means that we are measuring really less than the 0.2% in organizations. I think we're past that at this point. Enough already. Um, Transformational diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially around inclusion, is how we interact with each other. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, everybody's, oh, diversity, diversity, here are the benefits. No, those are not the benefits of diversity. The benefit of diversity is the ability to share perspective of thought. But when we look at the data, when we actually shake out the data of all those DE&I studies and the business case, what they're demonstrating is the business case for inclusion. See, every study that is admitted into these DE&I studies have to have an inclusive organizational culture. That's what we're measuring. If we're measuring diversity, it's just a metric. It's just number of women versus number of men. That's it. In order to have that business benefit of the shared perspectives or different perspectives, different schools of thought being brought to the table, if you don't have that foundation and inclusion, it's a waste of time. And if you don't have a foundation of inclusion, you will have what I like to call the diversity revolving door syndrome, where you will bring in diverse talent and they will leave because they will feel they're not listened to. So today we need to stop the insanity around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It really is about inclusion and equity. We have the diversity.
150%.
Mm, yeah, right. It really is about that inclusive lens that we approach each other, and then taking in accommodations or taking in accessibility, as I like to call it,
Mhm.
right? Like, how accessible then is your organization to everyone? and, in transformational inclusion and accessibility, we're applying a lens for every employee, not just those that raise their hand and say, hey, I have a disability. No. How inclusive and how accessible is your company to everyone? Everyone needs something different, right? We all don't have the same recipe for success in our workday. Everyone needs a little bit of difference, but we're not talking about that right now, right? We're focusing in on how do we blanket, promote the 20, focus on the 20, and to heck, that doesn't work today. That doesn't work today, especially in a culture and a workplace climate where we are so in need of employees, so in need of employees. So, yeah.
There's so much goodness in what you said, and I want to take us a few steps back because there is a beautiful business case to create an inclusive cultural organization, right?
Mhm.
Or organizational culture. And we don't know what we don't know,
Sure.
right? So I know oftentimes what you hear or what I hear has been, of course we're inclusive. Of course we are,
Mhm.
right? But what does that actually mean? How can a company who has never worked with an expert like yourself know whether they are actually inclusive and how to move? Like, let's just start with the mark.
Sure.
Create change. How do we know?
And a lot of companies don't even measure this. And Jack, you know this, right? You just said it. We hear this, right? I'm an inclusive organization. Just look at my website. No, your website is what I like to call propaganda. I'm an inclusive organization. All of our employees feel like they belong. Well, belonging's part of inclusion. So, okay, but what do you mean by that? An organization that is inclusive, if you're doing engagement surveys annually, you should have 5 inclusion questions in that engagement survey. And that looks at, are your employees feeling like they're heard? Do they have a voice at the table? That's just question 1. It's not 2 questions, that's question 1, right? Do they feel heard? Do they have a voice at the table? Does your organization go out of its way to recognize everyone, not just the top 20%, but the entire employee base? How are you doing that? What does that look like? Because we have these nasty little things called biases that no matter what we do, will be there, no matter how much time you journal and you work on your biases. Trust me, 20 years plus working on my biases, and then I go take the Harvard implicit bias assessment, and I uncover more biases. It's like, are you kidding me? We can't help it, right? They're in the back of our mind. They're in the back of the mind. So when we're recognizing our employees, are we aware of our biases? When we're hiring employees, are you aware of your biases? More than likely you're not. It's so funny. I just spoke with an organization, a very large organization that prints a lot of materials, and it starts with the letter D. And they hire consultants. And in the conversation with their chief hiring officer, they were telling me, well, we only hire Harvard, MIT, or Bentley students, fresh grads. And I'm like, really? I didn't go to any of those schools. Well, those are the top schools. Really? Let me educate you, right? And I think that educational component is part of that. Let me educate you on higher education. As adjunct faculty at many universities, I teach the same course everywhere I go. It's the same curriculum. You get the same crazy dynamic Lauran when I teach it, whether it's Bentley, Harvard, or Merrimack College. You're getting the same thing. All you get at those higher level universities, and I do the quote higher level, is networking ability. That's it. you're paying for networking access. So if you want to make the case that you hire only from those schools because of networking, you're still missing out because we are inclusive today. See, you're missing everyone else that are thought leaders that have their own strengths. I mean, imagine that everyone that goes through, say, a Harvard or Bentley or an MIT, they have the same thinking patterns, right? It's part of higher education. So now you've got a bunch of like-minded individuals. Great. Good luck when there's a problem. It's no wonder that this large organization skews the heck out of their studies because they don't have anyone in there that truly knows how to read a study, right? With that empiric eye. Drives me crazy.
And something that you mentioned in your book around this, I love that perspective, that example, because how does that actually create opportunity?
Yeah.
You know, those people had the money to go there, and there's a small percent that got scholarships.
Very small.
Yeah. Did you hire just the people with scholarships? Have you sought those people out? Like, where are we in terms of the diversity of thought?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's right. There's your big issue.
Yeah.
So, I'm constant. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty vocal with these groups out there that this is their school of thought. Anytime they put a study out, I rip it apart. And you can go to LinkedIn and you can buy my stuff. I rip them apart because I'm like, that's not what the study said. That's what you're spinning the study to say, because it makes you feel better when you sleep at night.
Mhm.
That's that disruptor in me that comes out. But we need to stop. Yeah, if you have a preference towards food, good for you. I love Thai food. Love Thai food. My husband says, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" I want to go for Thai. He hates Thai, but I want to go for Thai. That's fine. I love all students coming out, all fresh outs, rather than just that narrow scope. See, I can have a preference for food, but having a preference towards employees is full of biases.
Mm.
It's full of biases. And when you have a manager or a human resource department or an executive leader leaning in on that hiring process with a focus on specificity, where they went to school, they're lacking self-awareness. They're lacking self-awareness. I love it. I will ask our executive leaders or any of the executive leaders that I interface with, I'm like, what's your favorite university? What's your favorite type of worker? And from there, we can pick out where those biases are. It's those aha moments because we all have them.
Interesting. Okay, so you've mentioned hiring practices. What are some other common things that come up, some unseen moments that are clues?
That are clues. I look at organizations' wellness programs. I go right at them and I go really hard at them because every employee needs a wellness program behind them. Employees spend the majority of their life in the office working. I'm not going to say every employee, but most employees, right? What does the wellness program look like? Is it just geared for mental health? There's other wellness issues out there besides mental health. And if you have a mental health wellness program, you're somewhat ahead of the curve because I've seen a lot of organizations not even have the mental health wellness program. And it's not, right? It takes it even a step further, right? If you have a wellness program, be sure it includes ergonomics, use occupational health, ergonomics, have a mental health provider that you can refer out to. How about finances? How about family, moms, dads? I love it because dads often get left out. It's like, oh, we've got a mom group. Great. Do you have a dad group? No, they don't need help. Really? I mean, I have kids. My husband could use all the help he could get. Think about that. He could use all the help to relate and right because moms we tend to be and we do. I'm not saying this right. We tend to be more intuitive. This is what the research has demonstrated that we tend to be more intuitive. We tend to have more empathy. We tend to be more transformational. And that comes from the Project Globe study. Right? Women tend to be more transformational leaders. We tend to be more transformational parents. It's the holistic approach, the bigger lens, where dads tend to be, or men tend to be, and I'm utilizing male and female lazily here. And I apologize for that because we also have to say, right, you don't have to be a man to be a dad or a mom, whatever your gender is, if your role is mom or dad, this is what the data has supported from the mom lens, more transformational, more empathetic, and more intuitive, regardless of your gender. The dad role tends to be much more transactional. It's much more reward based. You got a grade. You got an A. Good job. Here's, we're gonna reward you $10 for every A you get. I would never, ever do that. That is such a dad mentality. I'm sorry, you're going to get A's because if you want to go to college and have me help you in college, I want you to go to a good college. Otherwise, it's all on you. But yeah, that dad mentality, again, tends to be transactional, tends to be reward based. There might not be as much empathy. Think of a dad and a crying child, male or female, doesn't matter, or non binary. How do dads, the dad mentality, the dad mindset deal with that? They send them to mom.
Yeah, so they clearly need the support at work, which is a
So they need the
definite win.
support at work. Thank you. Yes, right. So you've got that's when you look at your wellness programs in an organization, are they inclusive? Or are they just focused on target groups, moms, mental illness?
Right.
Yeah.
And to just add a note into this, that we know in the wellness community is a difference between mental health and mental wellness. So you don't have to have mental health has to do with a diagnosis on mental illness, but you can still be languishing in your mental wellness even if you don't have a diagnosis in mental health. So therefore, that overall picture becomes really important. And I can stand on my soapbox all day around that, but I'll bring it back. So we are looking, so many of our members are business owners, they're practitioners in the wellness space, whether we have spas, resorts, cryotherapy, breath work, trauma-informed work. And I'm being so minimal, well, wellness coaching, consulting, it is broad, and I'm barely skimming the surface on it. The wellness economy is huge. You kind of mentioned this a bit and hinted to it with some of the studies that have come out and the skewed results. But I would love for you to speak a bit on an inclusive culture and what result that brings on the client side.
So organizations don't work in a microcosm. Everything that happens in an organization trickles out into your community, into your customers. Think of it this way, right? You talk about mental, right? You talk about wellness, overall wellness. If I feel isolated, I'm not depressed. I just feel isolated because I'm a remote worker. And I feel stressed because let's be honest, some companies will require more work if you're a remote worker. And I'm feeling stressed. How do you think I'm going to interface with my customer? You're going to dump your junk on them. The same holds true for when you're at home. Right now, you're driving into work. You were 15 minutes late getting into your car. It's pouring out. You look down and you realize you have oatmeal dripping down on your shirt. Your phone is ringing. There's traffic. You're going to be late. You have a 9 o'clock meeting and you look at your car clock. It's 9 o'clock and you're still in traffic. How do you show up at work? Stressed. Who benefits? No one. No one. You're going to barge into that meeting and, as we call it, go bombaloo, where you just don't recognize where your emotions and your stress is coming from in that moment. And you end up taking it out on everyone. Right? What happens in the workplace trickles to the home life, trickles to our customers, our consumers. And what happens with our customers and consumers and our home life trickles back into the workplace. Everyone, that's transformational business modeling. That's what we're in right now. Transactional business, right? I think back to like in the 90s, I could go to work, and when I left the office, I didn't have a cell phone to come home with me. No one could reach me. God, I loved those days. Right? That's transactional. I'm working 8 to 5. Have a nice day. I take an hour for lunch, and yay me. And when I'm home, I am home and I am present from, 5:01 until 7:59 the next morning. That's home. Well, that doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. With the advent of technology, and the demands in the workspace, they all blur together now. There's no set time. It's all fuzzy. And what happens at home, you take to work, and what happens at work, you take home. And it impacts everyone, especially now that we have social media, and you can't do anything without it being caught. You can't. I mean, I remember when my kids were younger, they're like, "Mom, you can't swear at us. We'll put it on Instagram." And I was like, "Knock your socks off. Don't care." It's right. But that one Instagram trickles to your customers, doesn't it? Because your customers are interfacing with you on social as well. It is so blended that we need to stop siloing work, home, consumers, our customers. We are all one. They are all in your sphere. And we have to, right? That's inclusivity. We have to approach it that way.
I love that. And that is incredibly spot on. There is no work life anymore, right? It's not separate spaces. This is all together. And I like how the customer then becomes part of the entire equation. I think what's really interesting in this is oftentimes organizations will go either, of course, I'm inclusive, everyone is welcome here.
But are they?
Of course, I'm inclusive. Oh, you said that I don't have representation in my marketing. I'll fix that. Right? So then it's like, that's great. It looks more diverse, but what does that actually mean? So now let's say you've done that, right? People go straight to their marketer and create a change there. Well, now you've done that. So now what happens to that client who saw themselves in that ad, saw themselves on social and showed up? What does that experience look like?
All right. You need to move beyond the window dressing. What, as Janet Jackson says, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for your clients lately? What have you done that directly impacts their whole life? Right? That holistic approach. What have you done? I see this so often, especially with coaches, where they'll narrow in and they're like, "I do business coaching." Like, you're missing the bigger opportunity here, though. Because we just talked about the client, the home life, the business application. What have you done for your client lately? Sometimes it might not be business focused. Sometimes it might be leaning in to provide a little support around home focused.
One of the things, a couple of things that you mentioned that I found really interesting is really when it comes down to our fact finding, that creating an inclusive business, it can increase sales by 15-fold.
Absolutely.
Right? And that 58% of employees would jump ship to a competitor for a better organizational structure, and 73% of executives would do the same.
But yet the executives hold, right, for inclusion to stick in an organization, it must come from the top down. So if you're an executive listening going, "Yeah, that's me," I'm going to ask you, what have you done for your employees lately? What have you done to disrupt the current status quo in the workplace to make it more inclusive? Or are you just saying that's me? There are the doers and then there are the sayers. And executive leadership absolutely have to be the doers. They cannot just be the sayers. They create the vision, but then they've got to create that action plan.
Mm. One thing, Dr. Starr, before we open it up to Q&A, I have one more question for you. Can you highlight for us the key differences between inclusion trainings versus programs?
Yes. So training program, and there's all different schools of thought on how you utilize that word. I see it as when you have an inclusion training, it is a check the box. It's like, okay, we're putting everyone through this diversity training, this inclusion training, right? Everybody's going to go through and do culturally competency training. Okay, then what? An inclusion program has the then what built in. So you go through the training and then what? And then there might be retention material that's generated. And then what? And then the managers, your managers, will ask you on your one-on-ones how you're utilizing the information. How are you utilizing cultural intelligence in your day-to-day interaction with your employees and your customers? And then what? Right? The program is and then what? We have gotten into training minefields. Right, training is where we do all the. I love that Starbucks did the unconscious bias training. Look at them like scrunching my head up. Cost them $12 billion in revenue because they shut down for a whole day. Did this unconscious bias training. Yay them! Look at let's applaud them because they wouldn't let 2 Black men utilize a bathroom. Okay, and then what? Oh, there was nothing. There is no and then what. In fact, the inclusive bias training may have actually validated some of their inclusive biases. You put a group of people around together and you say, hey, women are catty. Oh, wait, I thought that too. Oh, I thought that too. You're validating. That's a training. There was no and then what. So they spent all of that money, lost all of those profits and sales, and then what? They got nothing for it. They got nothing for it.
And I think what's so interesting about that, it's like you don't go to the doctor once in your life and never go again and say you're good, right? So when they have something like this, when there is a training, well, yes, we need to create education. It is so super important. But let's say we all do this training and people in different affinity groups are like, yeah, they are celebrating the fact that we're doing this training. And then the people in different other affinity groups are not in one, right? I don't know if that's a thing.
No, it is. And I bet you caught my eye roll. They were like, because that's the wrong way to do it.
Right. Go back to set structure because what you just learned, you just had a moment of learning, you didn't have implementing, right? Yes. And what that does is that just makes everybody else not feel seen, be angry and irritated and frustrated, and then impacts the psychological safety of an environment.
Hands down. Hands down. I've seen this at organizations over and over and over again where they're like, we did all this DE&I training. We don't understand why our engagement survey results are low. And I'm like, well, there's no correlation to doing training and engagement results. Yeah. Training builds knowledge. End of the story. That's it. Programs put it into action.
I love that. All right, I want to open it up to our attendees. If anyone has questions, I'd love to be able to give you that. Anna.
Hi. It was great. I loved it, Lauran. I have a question. When you were talking about wellness programs in businesses, in companies, how and who do you approach to be able to make them realize that a wellness program is not just only having a meditation once a week or a yoga class. Like I realize I own a program that has movement, all stress management, but nutrition as well. Because I tell them, nutrition is so important for your employees. If they're well nourished, they will be able to think properly, to be able to take care of their clients properly. They make this gut-brain connection. But I figure that these companies like this, no, we don't need to talk about nutrition. So how and who do you need to talk to so they could understand that this is a holistic wellness program? This is all people need, all these 3 pillars.
Yeah, great question, Anna. Great question. First and foremost, right, when we think about our wellness programs, it tallies between benefits, so whomever is in charge of benefits at the organization, and occupational health. Usually they're in the same department. So that's who you want to be jumping onto LinkedIn, look up a company and be like, benefits, the head of benefits, or the head of occupational health. Then you just have to make the business case. I will share with you a little secret about human resource managers. And I love human resource managers, but we tend to just love to check the box. And 98% of the organizations out there, according to McKinsey, demonstrate that they have wellness programs that are served by one person, and it's a check the box. It is a one size fits all. And that's not true. That's not true. Right? Oh, we put a gym in. Whoopity-doo. You put a gym in, great for you. So you want to be talking to your, the head of benefits and occupational health, and really dive into, if you do this, you will get that. And you really have to drive that message that one size doesn't fit all. One size doesn't fit all. You should be speaking about that. You should be writing articles on LinkedIn about that. Because the other best kept secret for human resource managers in this space, they want more. They so want more. But we're looking to you to provide us that information so that we can take that up. I would also recommend collaborating with other people that offer wellness services so you can create the one-stop shopping. Think about that. You can go into an organization and say, hey, we've got 15 different companies, all under one umbrella, all under one platform for wellness for your employees. And then still identify where your gaps are. What we don't do is this. And the minute you say what we don't do, your HR manager, that leader, will perk up and be like, okay, because those are my gaps, because that's the next question. Once we bring in a wellness program, my next question is, where are your gaps? And if you can tell me where my gaps are, Anna, I will love you forever. Because I don't want to think about that. Tell me where my gaps are. But definitely this isn't a solo job. I think from a consulting lens, those days, that's transactional. Transformational. I had my own consulting firm for years in the HR space, and that was the first thing I did. One-stop shopping. How do you make it easier for your customer to book with you? That's how, we don't just provide this. I also have a financial planner that might provide financial awareness. I also have someone that, that does breathing or stress reduction or, one-stop shopping. And then identify your gaps, and that's how you're going to continue to build your offerings as a group. Wellness in the workplace is not a solo task.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's not a one size fits all.
Thank you. That was great. Great tips. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to be mindful of all of our time, but are there any other questions that we can bring to the forefront? Katie?
Yep. Hi. So this was amazing and very wonderful. But speaking to like what you were just talking about, like, and you kind of addressed it, like a training versus like a program, but then it's like and then what? And if everyone is different, it's like, how do you make a program that works for like, it's almost like an ox,
You can't.
like your brain's going to explode. So like, how
You
is,
can't.
yeah, you can't.
That, right? I mean, Katie, you just answered it. You can't. Right? Whether it's a program or it's a training, one size does not fit all. We are all diverse. We all have different needs. So that and then what is going to look different for everyone. So you go for the most common. You go for the most common, right? We say, okay, stress reduction. That's the most common. And then what? What does that look like? And then you can start breaking out by having conversations or round tables with the employees that are doing your program and ask them, and then what? And then what? How are you putting this in your everyday life? And then you can start creating subgroups if you'd like. And then what? That and then what is so important, right? That really is how you get implementation and impact. Because the last thing an organization wants to do is bring someone in, have them do a training, and have no impact. Right? If I bring someone in for stress management or deep breathing or relaxation or meditation, my next question as a leader is, who's currently doing it today still? And then what? How are you doing it? Where are you doing it? Are you doing it at home? That's measuring the impact of your program. That's measuring that impact of your program. And, we're all experts in something. But being an expert and being available are two different things. So you have to be available to those that you're educating, those that you're training or giving these tools to. And then you have to dig a little bit deeper so that you become their go-to. That's longevity.
Yeah, makes sense.
Great question.
Thank you.
Sherry's going to be like, Jackie, why are you doing this? But I have one more question.
Go for it.
What are the most impactful ways to integrate health equity into the company's overall ID&E strategy?
Yeah, I think, so if you're a healthcare company, they're doing health equity and we're knee deep there. So let me just ask a clarifying question. Do we want wellness equity or health equity?
Ooh,
Because those are two different things.
fair. Let's say wellness equity.
Yeah, wellness equity.
Yeah.
If we're talking about wellness equity, how do we have, and I love that you can coin that phrase, coin it now, wellness, right? Like we are focused on wellness equity. That's ensuring that everyone has access to your programs first and foremost. So if I'm I'll go right for disabilities first and foremost. If I'm in a wheelchair, can I do this program virtually? If I can't lay down, what else can I do? Right, so it's having that inclusive lens. It's understanding the cultural differences. And, if you speak to a Hispanic or Latino man and you tell them, I'm going to teach you how to deep breathe, they're going to walk away. That's not part of their culture. They don't have to deep breathe. That's been entrenched in them because it's a cultural belief that the man is so much stronger than the woman, right? That's that machismo that kicks in. Okay, how do we change up our language a little bit so that they can see that? How do we allow them to have ownership? That's wellness equity. And we know data supports, whether it be health equity, whether it be educational equity, whether it be wellness equity. If your consumer, if your customer buys into it, if they are part of the process and the decision making, they'll continue, they'll carry on. So, right, and that's utilizing inclusive language. Like I had to stop myself earlier because I was saying, moms, women, men, dads. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. I went off the rails there a little bit because that's not inclusive because you don't have to be a woman to be a mom. You can be non-binary.
100%. And onto that note, I just want to say that the research is done in a very gendered way.
Oh,
So
so much fun.
therefore, it makes it difficult to speak to that, but I love this. And again, I can talk to you for hours. I want to thank everybody for being here. I am incredibly grateful. Dr. Star, you are a gift.
Oh, my
Um,
pleasure.
So appreciate you. And thank you everyone for your active participation, your thoughtful questions. We hope you found this insightful, inspiring. Like I said, we're going to have it on our YouTube channel. I'm putting it in the chat, so you've got it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And have a gorgeous day.